Welcome to the Mind Myself podcast. I'm Esther, and it is my pleasure to be bringing you information about healthcare approaches, health issues, and people's health journey stories, all from the complementary, holistic, and integrative perspectives, helping you become your own best health advocate and helping you make your own informed choices because you matter. Welcome to the Mind Myself podcast, Conversations with E. I'm Esther, founder and CEO of Mind Myself, and it is my great pleasure to again welcome to the podcast Jennifer Regular. Welcome, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. I'm so excited to be back. I love our conversations.
Fantastic, me too. So before we dive into a conversation, and I'm going to look at my notes over here about wholeness within, what a fabulous topic. Let's find out a little bit about you, your credentials, and what brought you to this place in your journey.
Yeah, sure. Well, a lot's brought me to my place in my journey. Been a lot of pivots and turns along the way, but my study in school was around psychology, and I actually thought I was going to be a clinical forensic psychologist. So, I was going full force into the master's and the PhD and all of the things that would support that kind of vision for my life. Wanted to be a profiler kind of person. I was always interested in the mind and people and how we think and how we live out our lives based on what we think. And then I got really, really interested more in mental health. So it kind of shifted a bit, and I got focused on mental health as a way of my career going in that direction rather than the corrections, which is where I started out first, working with federal offenders anyway, because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And so I still got my BA in honors psychology, but I didn't go ahead to my master's and PhD because just as I was graduating from university, my father passed away. And that was a huge, devastating life experience for me that really altered my whole trajectory of where I was going to go. And, when those kind of situations, experiences, crises happen, then we start to explore different ways of being in the world because of our attachments or associations with, my dad who had passed along, and how that changed the dynamics of our family and everything else. And so I didn't end up going beyond that, but I did kind of work my way up then, because by then there was so much that had changed as far as grants and funding and what I was able to afford. And do I want a house or do I want a PhD? Like start making different life decisions. I didn't end up getting the house. I actually prefer renting and moving around. I'm more of a traveler and explorer, which is basically how I live my life. So I was exploring different ways of career and studying and learning and growing myself. And so I worked many years in mental health and with social services and human development, and then also started practicing in other ways where I got certified in, I became a master integrated energy therapist, for example, and a shamanic practitioner and Reiki drum healer, and started having these certificates for different roles and different practices to still support people in their well-being. So that's been a common thread throughout anything that I've ever taken on or done or studied, was about how we can become more inspired, empowered, and live life more fully and from the fullness of who we are.
What an incredible toolkit you have. And from forensic psychology to shamanism, woo! So anybody thinks it's all just woo-woo. I don't know. There's some pretty grounded stuff going on here. That's awesome. So Jennifer, we're going to talk today about mental health, spirituality, and a holistic approach to wellness.
Yes.
So let's kick it off. What does that actually mean to you? Let's just start right there.
Yes, what it all means for living a holistic life is that we recognize all those layers of our being, right? And so we commonly hear that we are spiritual beings having this human experience. And so when we talk about healing and empowerment, I think of it as soulful resilience, really lining up with who we came here to be and expressing our soul through what we came here to do. And so that takes a lot of energy and focus of our time and certain boundaries to create the right conditions for that. And so a lot of our illness, at least from a shamanic perspective, comes from soul loss. And that's also happening on the earth, and in nature and in even our body parts. There's certain aspects that get out of alignment and create disorder and disease. And there's a sense of loss and a heaviness. And so when I think of holistic health, I think of starting with the spiritual first. And so I often share different soul care practices and spiritual wellness strategies to facilitate that healing and self empowerment. And in integrated energy therapy, that's very apparent because our spiritual layer is furthest away from us. And if there's any blocks there, it'll affect us mentally, create mental and cognitive blocks, and then emotionally, and then ultimately manifest physically in our bodies. And so that's why I focus more on the out there, on the outer layers, more as a proactive way of supporting our health and well-being. So those social, yes, as well, but more the spiritual and mental layers of our being.
And so you're talking about layers of being, and you're spreading your arms out.
Yes.
For somebody who's never even thought of that before, what does that mean? Like different layers of being, and you're out at the layers and you're going, all those ones at our fingertips. How do you access those? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. So some people think of it as an aura, right? Or energy field. And so this is what radiates from our physical being, but it also radiates from out there, so to speak, right? And so our body's not just this physical form that we see. We have the physicality, sure, but we also have emotions. We also have our mental capacity and capabilities. And then we have our spiritual capacity as well. And so the out there, I'm just feeling out into my energy field. And that's very palpable when you start to work with your own energy. You can feel that vibration. You can feel, maybe if you're not so familiar, an expansion or a contraction of your being and how that feels. That's all energy at work too, and so if something's harmful in that out there part, that I'm reaching out to, then it's going to feel really contracted because we don't feel that space. We don't feel free. We feel like something's impeding on us, and that could feel, our edges are more easier to know because they're closer to us, right? And so that's basically what it means, but it's part of the mystery of life too, where we don't have all the answers about all of that, that it's just our environment, our surroundings that affect us on those levels that we talk about. And then there's those other layers too, which we won't spend a lot of time in, but we talk about different dimensions, right? And a lot of people now have been talking more and more and creating more awareness around 3D versus 5D, for example, right? And what that all means. So there are different dimensional parts of reality as well. And so in one of my healing practices that I work through is helping like people heal multidimensionally. So as a multidimensional healer, because these are the things that would be like medical mysteries, for example, right? Where doctors can't figure out what's going on because they're only looking at the physical. They're not looking at those other layers of our being.
Right. I was just interviewing somebody yesterday and she was talking about heart math. And so this sounds, and they found scientific ways to measure like the torus, the energy field, and what comes from the heart, and the heart and gut brain connection. And so I think there are so many layers to this, to what you're talking about. And we have a short time today, but maybe we could do another one on another podcast.
Yes.
I think as we explore these layers and get to know ourselves with the help of somebody like you, Jennifer, I think at the heart of so many people is trying to find our purpose, trying to find meaning in life. How does that integrate here and into wellness?
Yeah, well, that's really our spiritual wellness, right? That gives us the deeper meaning and purpose, really why we're here, really understanding why we're here. And that's like the biggest dilemma that we all face, right? Is like, who am I? Why am I here? That's such a common question and dilemma that we're experiencing. And when we're not engaging in what feeds our soul and having that self-care and the soul care, then we become very fragmented. We can even become numb or reactive in life. and not experience it in a calm, peaceful, joyful, contented way, or even joyful, and happy and excited. And so when we look at spiritual wellness, we're looking at that meaning and that purpose so that we have a deeper sense of life satisfaction, and also incorporating practices such as mindfulness and meditation can help calm our mind, that can help us bring us back into our center. So there's different centering practices like yoga, for example, that can support us in coming back to ourselves, right? Drawing back our energy, calling our energy back home to us so that we can feel that soulful resilience, right? That we can feel strong and have that inner confidence that really comes from the wholeness within, right? That we don't become fragmented by all the different directions that we're pulled in, rather that we can experience ourselves as our spiritual essence of what we're here to do. And some of the ways that we can get there, there's a practice I call cope, because life is chaotic. It's
Yes, it
tumultuous
is.
out there, so how any of us keep our sanity is an interesting, reflection on how we even do that. But cope can help. And cope is like an acronym so that it's easy to remember. And the first one being conscious connection. And the second part being it's only temporary, so recognizing the impermanence, recognizing that this isn't how life is going to be forever. It can feel really long sometimes when we encounter these challenges and we're not sure how we're going to get through it. So when we have that conscious connection with our higher self, our higher power, and our true selves, and then start to recognize that it's only temporary, then we can start to ponder the possibilities, which is the P, and reprioritize, how we're living our life and how we're being in it. So the possibilities is what we can choose over the problem. So we ponder the possibilities as a way to cope. And the E is really about your energy and how you're sustaining it for your own well-being. So energy management becomes really important, and so that we don't end up overwhelmed or burnt out or drained or feeling not ourselves anymore. I go through lots of periods where I can feel like that. And then I engage in my spiritual wellness strategies and soulful practices to help restore my energy and realign, with who I truly am and what's meaningful and important for me. So coming back to that meaning and purpose is how we can also help create a sustainable future, because then we are driven by that meaning and purpose, and it also helps sustain us.
That's so important. And as you were speaking, I was thinking inside myself as well. I could be living my purpose. I could have found my calling and living my purpose, but I could be so stressed and so angsty and so clutching onto I need to do this and I need to do that. And how do we come back? And I love your phrase, conscious connections. I have a group called that, which I love.
Cool.
And it's so important. And I've come back to that so many times. And
Yeah.
could you restate your acronym COPE, what each word stands for before we move on to the next thing?
Yeah. C for conscious connection. O, it's only temporary, only temporary. P, ponder possibilities. And E, energy management.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And you've given us a few tips and strategies. Are there other ones that you use that promote mental stability?
Yes, well, you mentioned one of them about conscious connections, that you had a group, there's a community. So having the support, having community, having resources is how we can resource ourselves as well, and that support, that community, those groups is what offers us a real sense of belonging and that deep connection. And that gives us that sense of stability, safety, and security that we all long for. So that's another way of having the support, draw on your support network, create one if you don't have that already, and start vibing up, with other people that are revival mechanisms for you, to remind you of what you love and that you can be happy and that you can be supported, and really reach out for those resources and resource yourself through that.
I love the word that you use, resource, but it's resource.
Mhm.
That's just, I'm going to remember that. And somebody else I was talking to this week, he said, the journey is the home. And I love that. We often think of the destination, the end, that's home. But he was saying the journey is the home. And I've really taken that to heart. And that's going to be one of my mantras in the next
Love
while. The
that.
journey is the home.
Beautiful.
And I was just traveling recently as well for the first time in a number of years. But one of the other things, and this isn't what you were talking about, but I think it's part of it. The food I was eating while
Mm-hmm.
I was away was so not how I usually eat. And I did my best. I had green juice, but restaurant food is not the food, the clean water that I get at home. And part of grounding and mental wellness, spiritual wellness is the food that I'm eating too. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we can think about food as medicine, really, and what does your body need to feel supported, and to be vibrant and to have energy and to also be satisfying and tasteful and and I really enjoy Ayurvedic practices, especially when it comes to eating as well. And in Ayurveda, we incorporate the six tastes into every meal and it makes it really satisfying. But it not only provides nutrients, there's other beneficial segments to it in that it works on our energy field and all those other layers as well because of the way it helps us think more clearly and
Right.
gives us energy to carry out all those tasks on our to-do list, and so it all supports our body either in healing imbalances that may be there and also to secure our vitality too. And like you say, it's not clean, it's dirty, it's toxic, and then our body has to work that much harder when we're eating things that don't support us. And then we become even more tired and more stressed. And yeah, food has a tremendous impact on our well-being. I totally agree with you, Esther.
And we don't think of it sometimes, but I just wanted to bring that into consciousness here. And you mentioned the six tastes. So I know sweet, salty, sour, pungent, astringent, and bitter. Are those
Yes.
them? Yeah.
Yes, those are the ones. You pass.
Okay, I pass.
That's
So
awesome.
so
Yeah.
that's an encouragement for us all to think about those. And one of the most important ones is bitter, and we tend to not want that. And there are ways to incorporate it in our food and our diet and our well-being that that just change our palates, and then it's not obnoxious because you don't have to have huge, great amounts of it. You just have to have little bits of it, and then our bodies are in more wellness orientation.
Yeah, and it's really, part of enjoying life fully, enjoying our food fully, and then you're using every part of your taste buds on your tongue. So you have the full experience of that. And we can translate that into life or transfer it into life as well, when there's some things that we don't necessarily like, but that can also be really good for us. And so embracing all those aspects so that we can live more fully.
What a great discussion, Jennifer. You and I could keep going forever. So what's one thing what's one thing you'd like to leave the listener with today?
I'll share my motto, Esther, and that's free your spirit to direct the life that you're meant to live.
Free your spirit to direct the life you are meant to live.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. And I look forward to future conversations.
My pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks, Esther.
Bye.
Thank you for being with us at the Mind Myself podcast today. We know that time is precious and you've spent some of your valuable time with us. We're grateful. If you would like to reach out to our guest directly, the information is below. And if you would like more from Mind Myself, that information is also below. Please visit our website and check out all the information about the different complementary, holistic, and integrative healthcare approaches, information about health issues, more podcasts, tons of blogs, and we even have a community page for you where you could reach out and tell your story safely, or you could ask questions and perhaps somebody else in the world is going through something similar to you. In any case, we're so glad you're with us, and we're doing this because you matter.